Moving on to Chapter 6, Judgment in Managerial Decision-Making by Bazerman and Moore, we're going to take a look at the motivational and emotional influences on decision-making. In the introduction notes to the chapter, we noted that in the utilitarian approach, doing the greatest good for the greatest amount of people was the goal. In the deontological approach, we judge the morality of an action based on the action's adherence to rights and duties. Sorry for the replicated "to" there. When emotion and cognition collide, we have an internal argument between thoughtful reasoning and emotional reactions within ourselves. These multiple selves deciding between what we want and what we should do often come into conflict with one another. In want, we see the instant gratification of a choice. In the should, we take a look at future rewards. In that, we also have to acknowledge the discounting concept, which involves any choice that involves a trade-off between current and future benefits. And this should discount the future to some extent. So if we don't save that money today, we're not going to have it tomorrow. And that's basically what discounting concept tells us. When emotion and cognition collide, hyperbolic discounting is the overweighing of the present. YOLO, you only live once. And people think that they should spend every dollar in their wallet. We as Christians believe that you should be good stewardships over the money that you have. God's put you in charge of it for a reason. This isn't shared across the board. This is our worldview, and it might not be shared by someone else that has a different worldview. Emotionally, the near is present. It's closer to us. So it's more interesting, it's more motivating, it's more compelling than saving money for a future that we may never see. But I would encourage you to put a little away here and there. Self-serving reasoning, perceptions and expectations are often biased and self-serving. And we don't do this cognitively. We don't put ourselves forward in that way. And if we do, there may be some other issues at play. Usually it's not a desire to be unfair, but it's in our failure to interpret information in an unbiased manner because we put ourselves first to see how new information is going to benefit us before we look at the collaborative efforts of all persons to be able to move forward. And we're unaware of this bias usually, and it's a vulnerability, especially in good leadership. Emotion influences on decision making. We have appraisal tendencies. We prepare to respond to the world in a certain way, and our emotions do influence our judgment. Sad people are more affected by anchors and make worse decisions as a result. Fear makes us more sensitive to risk. Anger increases confidence and makes one feel more powerful and decreases sensitivity to risk. The alternative is happiness is much the same. It can cause us to do things by leaps and bounds. We make bigger, there are bigger foibles for a person to fall into issues when they're overly happy or overly stimulated. Emotional influences on decision making. Continued. Depressed persons cannot remember happiness. When a boss is happy, they are more optimistic about processes and staff. We are better at remembering information consistent with our state of mind than information inconsistent with it. Suboptimal decisions can cause regrets. These arrangements that we enter into quickly because our emotions are leading the way, as we discussed in System 1 thinking, It's fear of the regret that leads us to make suboptimal decisions. We may think to ourselves, you'll see this present in the midlife crisis, where gentlemen or ladies can think that their life expectancy is more than half over and they want to live a little. So they buy the expensive sports car, or they enter into the unreasonable timeshare. And we do this because we don't want to regret anything later. And it's that YOLO ideology again. You only live once. This makes for the duality of self. And we talked about that on the initial slides of the lecture, and it gives us the multiple selves where we're infighting against each other and looking for rhyme or reason to be able to legitimize what may be a poor idea that we may regret later. It is an internal negotiation for the relative value of better outcomes. We only need this for today, or we only need this for tomorrow. And these are the things that we have to be cognizant of when we're making decisions that can affect us long term. And that's chapter 6 in a nutshell, and we're moving on to chapter 7. See you there.